Disclaimer. All views expressed on What Makes Us Fire are solely those of the person or persons giving them. What Makes Us Fire does not represent or claim to represent any particular city or fire department, and therefore make the claim that all views and standpoints are affiliated with What Makes Us Fire and with What Makes Us Fire only. Any mention of certain fire departments or cities within the interviews are solely for informational and opinion-based dialogue. So, in short, if you have a problem with something that was published, please just say something. And don't be a Richard.
Oh, oh, I'm sorry. You don't want me to chew with my mouth open? What are you, my dad? What's going on? What makes us fire family? How you doing? Today, on this episode, I have a very special guest. His name is Mr. Daniel Smith. He's the father of a firefighter that I work with. He's everyone's father. Him and his family are the kind of people we need in this world that aren't afraid of hardship, that aren't afraid to lend a helping hand when someone needs it. Mr. Daniel Smith, I now consider a father of my own. Y'all sit back, relax, listen to the perspective of a man who raised a firefighter. Mr. Daniel Smith.
Real quick, guys, please excuse the audio. It was a Zoom meeting. Enjoy. All right, sir, we're recording.
Okay.
Awesome. Mr. Smith, thank you for joining me on What Makes Us Fire. You're the father of one of the firefighters that I work with, Brian, and he actually mentioned you and said that he would really want you to be somebody I talk to.
Okay.
And when he told you that, what did that make you feel like?
I was glad that he did, because he does confide in me. You know, he does talk to me. He gets things off his chest, about, how the night went, if it was good, bad, whatever, and I think that helps him to talk about it to somebody that's not directly in the field, to where it made me feel good that, he would think that I would be a good, source to possibly help somebody else, understand what's going on, with different things and stuff.
Did he tell you how the process went? How I've kind of been getting a little deep, maybe poking and prying into people's lives that they don't normally share, because I think that's going to be part of the information that people need to hear so they can relate and really learn from it. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, he didn't go into a whole lot of details about what you do with the podcast and stuff like that, but he did tell me that, you're trying to gather, to where possibly you could help others or be able to have them understand what you guys go through and what the families go through, to maybe somebody else will catch something by watching your podcast that will help them understand it better as to what their spouse or partner, the son, daughter, goes through on a daily basis when they're out on the job. So I think, all in all, it's, good information, and just to get a different perspective from somebody other than a fireman or EMT.
And you know what? I really do appreciate you putting yourself out there to help me do that. There's not a lot of people that are willing to share personal information like that, knowing that it can help. Some people
Right.
just like to be, closed and quiet. I'm not one of those people. Brian's not really one of those people.
No.
We like to put ourselves out there to help. I want to get started by getting to know you first. Where are you from? What do you do? What was your background like before Brian was even a thought?
I'm originally from Nebraska. I was born in Iowa, raised in Nebraska. We grew up there. My wife moved to Nebraska. We got married. Then we kind of moved around the country I used to work in retail
Mm-hmm.
years ago. So we moved around a lot because that was just the way it was in retail at that time. Either I moved or I got fired. So I kind of had to move. And then the boys started coming along. And then we finally got to where I quit one company and went to start, and we moved to Wisconsin. So we currently live in Wisconsin right now. We moved here in 92 to where we currently live, but we moved up into Wisconsin in 88. So we've been up here for quite a while. My wife is from Wisconsin. So it's kind of weird that, Wisconsin, Nebraska got together, but we did. And with the boys, we wanted to get more stabilized. So I just said, I'm not moving anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have stayed here since.
Were the boys planned? Were they happy, surprised?
Kind of our oldest boy, Aaron, we were, trying, because we were just newly married. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he was kind of, sort of. Our second one, Adam, was not. And we lost Adam about 8.5 months long in the pregnancy. And then a year later, my wife got pregnant again, and we thought she was having twins because she was so huge, but she had just had extra body fluids with Brian. Did some ultrasounds and did an amniocentesis through her into labor. So Brian was actually born about 6 weeks premature.
Wow.
He was fine. No,
Right.
he was still healthy enough because he was far enough along. But yeah, he put on the weight within the first month. So he was really skinny and little, and then he really porked out.
Wow. He was even causing trouble before he was born.
Yes, he was a difficult baby all the way through.
Oh man. So you've been up north. I mean, I am totally oblivious to the culture up north. I visited New York a couple times, Vermont maybe, but that's all the way northeast.
Right.
And I am completely ignorant of the culture up there. What I know is what I see on TV and hear from Brian and his damn cheese curds. And
And his spotted cow.
yeah, oh God. Ugh. But that's been your entire life is northeastern life, north central life?
Right. Pretty much central to north. I've never lived. I can't say that because we did live in Mississippi, Arkansas for probably 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the boys were really little. But it's mostly been north or west, and we've lived in Colorado and Arkansas, Mississippi, Iowa.
Definitely moved around with that job, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. When Brian was born, we'll get into Brian now since he's
That's fine.
the reason why I'm talking to you. How many? Let me go back. How many boys did you have?
We've had 4.
4.
We lost Adam,
Mm-hmm.
9.5 months. So it's our oldest is Aaron, Adam, Brian, and then we adopted Hunter. He was 11 years old when we adopted him.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter came to us at age 7.5. He has spinal muscular atrophy type 2. So he is completely dependent on somebody else helping him because SMA is a muscle. He's missing muscle genes. So it's a genetic thing. Both mom and dad are missing the same gene, which is common with any adult. But so he is actually missing one gene, but has like 5 different copies of that gene to where he can't walk. He can't. At that time, he couldn't hold his head up by himself. He couldn't set up physically and hold himself up. Using his left arm was pretty much non-existent. Moving his right arm, he could do some. He's in a wheelchair. He has an electric wheelchair, so he can get around pretty easy now. But He was very small for a 7.5-year-old, constantly getting pneumonia, which he can get pneumonia just from a cold. At that age, they were very concerned that, he wouldn't make it. Well, he's 9, 10 years old. Some of the SMA kids don't make it past 1 or 2.
So he's already the odds, huh?
He's 16 now.
So he's
So,
definitely.
yeah, they can live a normal, long life. They're six. I've seen where there's some people up in their 60s with SMA. But as long as they're healthy and got the proper nutrition and meds and therapies and everything, they can live a normal life as far as longevity. But if they don't get those kind of things, then the disease will progress faster. He's currently getting what they call Spinraza dosage. It's a protein that helps with the muscle gene. It kind of is putting it back into his system. So he's gained where he can push himself forward in his wheelchair and pull himself back into a sitting position. He can put his head down, pick it up, hold his head up, out, somebody helping him. He can move his right arm pretty good, where he's pretty good with a computer. He figures out different ways to use remotes for the TV. Left arm still not as much movement there, but they said with the Spinraza at his age, because he started it at 13, they were looking more to slow down the progression of the disease and to help give him more upper body control and better lung capacity, which it's helped in all those ways. He does have some leg movement, not a lot. So he can move his feet. And if he's sitting in an upright position on the edge of a therapy bed or something like that, he can swing his right leg better than he can his left. So he's got more than what he ever used to have.
That's amazing. It's amazing. It tells me and it shows me what kind of people Brian has in his life. That is something that not a lot of people would take on.
Right. It's a handful.
I'm not going to ask why you took him on. Obviously, you took him on because you had a love for him and you wanted to continue showing that love.
We were doing what they call respite care for a Down syndrome girl for after schools and sometimes once in a while on a weekend. So the county knew we were doing respite care. They called us up and said, hey, we need emergency respite care for this little boy. So we said, yes. We brought him over, and within a month of him coming into our house, they said, we need foster care. Can you do that? Yes, we're not going to turn him down. So we were licensed within 60 to 90 days, which is unusual because usually it takes like 6 to 8 months to get licensed with foster care. And so we went through that whole process. So he was in foster care until we adopted him. And I can tell you, the first day that Hunter came to us, we were not set up to have a child in a wheelchair. He didn't have his electric wheelchair at the time because it was left out in the rain, so it got ruined, and they were in the process of getting it fixed. So he was in a regular adult-size manual wheelchair that they kind of modified to where it could tilt back for him, but it's an adult one. He's just a little 45-pound kid. He doesn't fit in this thing at all.
Right.
And so we had him setting up in a lounger chair in the living room so he could watch TV. And when I got home from work that night, I went over and talked to him a little bit, and he goes, can you just sit here and watch TV with me? And that's what we did that night. That's all it took, and there was no way I was going to give him up to anybody, not even back to his mom. But it's for a 7-year-old looking for a father figure, because he didn't really have a father figure in his life, and to accept a stranger in his life just to be able to help him and show him what he can do, and to love him unconditionally, no matter what. I mean, and it's been a long road for Hunter.
I'm
Both
sure it's
boys,
a road for you too and the family. How did the boys take it? How did the boys?
um, Brian and Aaron both took it very well. We told them, hey, we're doing foster care for this child. And then when it came to the adoption, they accepted Hunter from day one as a family member, no matter if he was in foster care or, and they both pick on him, just like, he's been a biological brother to them. The grandkids, they'll do anything for Hunter. They love, playing with Hunter, doing video games or whatever. Brian's little boy was
Mhm,
staying at our house, and he would have been probably 4 or 5.
mhm.
Hunter, we were eating supper, and he goes, "Can I feed Hunter?" Sure. Just pick up this little piece on the fork and feed it to him. Well, he shoves it in his mouth, and he shoves the fork all the way clear to the back of the throat, so he makes him gag.
Oh,
So after that, he goes, "I don't want to feed him no more." And
oh,
that's, because Hunter can feed himself. If it's finger food and he can pick, have his arm in the right position, he can feed himself. Otherwise, I usually feed him or my wife feeds him. But all the kids, both boys have really accepted Hunter as a brother.
that's good.
They pick
That
on him, they tease him. Hunter turned 16 here this year. My oldest boy said he has to have a car. He's got to have his own car. So he gave him a 2-foot, great big, huge, remote controlled Dodge Ram car. Because that's his car. That's what he's going to be able to get. He's already got one that goes like 6 miles an hour anyhow. So, that's his wheelchair. So,
right.
but,
I'll tell you
um,
what, Mr. Smith, that story, it definitely shows the kind of people your family is. It kind of makes sense that Brian became a firefighter hearing that story.
yeah,
The way you guys put yourself out there for him and to take care of him and to accept him and to teach him and to continue helping him, it just shows the kind of people you are. And I want to say thank you for being that kind of person and thank you guys for being that kind of family, because I believe it's families like yours that show compassion in this world. And where I personally feel like sometimes that gets lost. Some people are almost a little too selfish from now and then, and not a lot of people would have taken on that burden you guys did. And I want to say, me personally, thank you for being those kind of people, because we need people like that in the world to show that it can be done, it should be done.
right. Because there's so many kids out there in foster care. I mean, and there's just so many people that are willing to. I mean, pretty much you open up your life to a lot of different people. Besides the foster,
Mhm.
biological folks, to social workers and everything. You're an open book from that point on. So and not everybody wants to do that, because, everybody is reserved to a point, but, and we really didn't know what we were getting into, when all of a sudden you've got 6 social workers walking in your house on a unannounced home visit, because you've got 3 foster kids in the house. So they all come at the same time, you
Yeah,
know.
but you not
So
that it says something about you, that not knowing what you're getting into, but continuing to do it anyway, that
right.
says something about you. And
Yeah. And
and
there's
then not quitting and just continuing to do it.
right.
So
I mean, and there's a lot of people that will continue and continue. And there's some that do it for the wrong reasons, and there's the majority of, and I would say, most all of the people that do foster care do it for the kids. They don't do it for themselves. They do it to help the kids and to love the kids. So,
well, that's just like anything else. There's bad apples in
right.
everything of life, in every aspect. I appreciate you sharing that story again because it definitely shows the kind of people Brian came from. What was Brian like growing up specifically? Was he always the kind of kid that you knew would get into this kind of civil service realm?
No, I never, I never, ever, my wife and I never ever thought he would get into the civil realm. I mean, him growing up in high school and, grade school and stuff was never on his radar to become an EMT fireman. There's, not, I don't know if
What did you guys think he was gonna do?
early
I
on, I think he really wanted to be, a football player,
uh-huh.
but he was small, skinny, he had no muscle. And the only person he fought with was his older brother, and they didn't like it when I would step in, so because I would make them stand there and hit each other.
Right.
And Brian can tell you too. I would make them stand there and face each other. Yes, I used a belt for
Hey,
persuasion.
you know what? I know everybody has their own personal views on that, but I am totally okay with it because
It was a different
I,
time and different era, you
well,
know.
even nowadays, I still think it's okay as long as you're not doing it with the purpose of hurting them. The
Right,
purpose is to teach them
right.
that when something happens, this is a consequence,
Yep,
not when something happens, you're going to get hurt. That's not what you're teaching them. You're teaching them the
no,
consequence. So when
yep,
people
yep,
take a little, it can be taken too far, but I think spanking and belts and stuff like that, I personally think it's okay.
right,
But I'm totally cool with people that don't think it's okay either. I get it. I understand. Don't hold anything against them.
right,
So
right. So,
like you make them stand in face each other and
and they
do
would
what?
have to, if they were fighting, okay, you want to hit each other? Stand here and hit, you know. No, they would just lightly punch. And I mean lightly punch, they would barely touch it. So then I would smack them with the belt and tell them either you hit each other or you're going to get it worse. And so then finally they would, but, and then, it wouldn't be that long, but, so then they get put in the corner and stayed there for a while. And
And they wouldn't really get hurt either, I'm sure.
no,
They weren't like
no, because they
beating
don't,
you.
they're 4 and 5, or 3 and 5,
You
so they're
taught
not hitting really super hard,
you taught them the
anyway.
consequences of their actions is what you
Right,
did. What it
right.
sounds
It's not nice to fight with your brother,
exactly
no matter, but I know we all do it. So
right.
I
So
used to
you
do it to
thought you
my
wanted
brother. So
yeah. I used to fight with my brother too. He'll tell you I just always kicked his ass and I was always mean. And every time he would get that lucky punch, I would get even more mad.
yeah,
But
and my
anyway,
brother's got a temper, and I could set him off real easy. So
I think all siblings know that trigger.
yeah, yeah.
They love that trigger. So you thought Brian was going to be a football player?
And then really, even going through school, high school and stuff, he really didn't know really what he wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
He worked retail for a while. Really didn't like that. He did phone work, at a cell phone place. Worked at a grocery store. Was he happy? No. And then when he finally got into volunteering for our department in Minnesota, he started to change.
Mm-hmm.
He started to grow up. And you could see that where he was really enjoying going out on fire calls or going out on an ambulance call and stuff, to where you could really see where that was changing him and where he was going. And then when he finally decided, he needed to get licensed and get all his credentials and move forward with that, that changed him completely, where he, basically did a 180 from where he was to where he is. Um, and I've always told my boys, do what you want to do. Don't do something just to please mom and dad because you think that's what we want. No, It's what you want to do, how you can support your family. And both boys enjoy doing what they do. My oldest boy is an auto mechanic, and he loves it because he loves cars. He loves to be able to go hunting and stuff like that. So, so I've always told him, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. I'll support you anyway. And I think, that's, what I do. I'm there for support for them.
When Brian started volunteering, did you have any idea how the volunteer fire service worked at that point? And if you did, what was your thought process about him getting into that?
I kind of knew what it was because I have an uncle who is
Mm-hmm.
a volunteer fire back in my hometown. He just actually retired here last year after 50 years being a volunteer fireman.
50 years as a volunteer?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I kind of knew what volunteer, you get called out at any time of the night, day, whatever, and I know a few other guys that, through what I work at, they also do fireman and EMT. So I kind of knew what he was getting into, but
Mm-hmm.
there again, not knowing all the aspects of what they do, they go out and they put out fires and stuff like that, but all the risk they take, what they, put themselves into, situations they end up putting themselves into was really eye-opening.
When did you start realizing about all that stuff? Was that once he actually started taking it very seriously and was
Yeah,
pursuing
when Brian started taking it
certification?
really serious, that's when I really, really opened my eyes as to what he did,
Mhm.
even as a volunteer to help somebody else in a situation with the fire department. What kind of risk was he putting himself into? Could be life threatening, potentially. Some of the calls he went on, some of the accidents he's seen that he had to, help with. And he would just kind of talk through things and would kind of just give me a perspective of kind of what he's seeing and how he's reacting to a situation and able to jump in without thinking and know exactly what he needs to do.
As a
And
father, how did that make you feel when you found out truly about like the dangers that he was getting himself into? And I'm not just talking about the fires where the physical dangers. I'm talking about also when you realize that what he sees can actually cause trouble psychologically. As a father, one, how did you feel about it? And two, how do you think you managed that issue with him?
how I felt,
Yeah.
knowing exactly what he was doing, the dangers he was putting himself into. I was scared.
Mm-hmm.
My wife knows very little of some of the situations he gets into,
Right.
but I do. So kind of knowing his work schedule was, and you worry. Yeah, you don't, consciously think
Mm-hmm.
about it, but he's at work. And then when you get that phone call the next day, everything is fine. So you're kind of tense throughout the whole day. And I think that's where everybody is. Everybody's kind of tense because they don't want somebody to call or come to the door. Because you always see that. You see that in the movies.
Right.
Something happens to somebody, all of a sudden they're at the front door. And you picture that in your mind as a parent that, yeah, that time could come and it scares the hell out of me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want it to come, but knowing the job that you guys do, it could happen at any time. We don't know. And so I worked myself through that, and I've gotten a whole lot more comfortable with what you guys do. I still worry.
It's interesting at the beginning you said that you don't consciously think about it. Like you know his schedule and you know when he's at work, but it's not like that forefront thing where you're sitting all day waiting for the phone call the next morning.
Right.
It's funny that you say that you almost have to put it in the back of your mind because
Yeah.
if you didn't, you'd worry all day.
Right. You would make yourself, if you worry about it all the time, or, you're constantly thinking about what are they doing, what kind of calls are going on, you're going to make yourself mentally and physically sick,
Mm-hmm.
just from the worriness of it. And I know that's not good for anybody. So, I mean, if you can, yeah, they're at work, but not think about what they're doing at work, it helps. So that's kind of what I do. I know he's at work, but I don't really think about what he's doing. I can always just say, okay, they have a slow day. All they're doing is just sitting there at the station playing games, video games, watching movies, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
harassing each other, BSing and stuff. So that's how I deal with it on a daily. When I know you guys are at work, I can just picture you guys all sitting there in the main room, either at the table or sitting there in front of the TV, just relaxing and chilling and not worrying about a call because there's not a call coming. And
So
then
you
I get,
almost have to force yourself to think about the downtime.
yeah, that's, and that's the way I just kind of, I guess, push it to the back because I just think of, you guys are just all on downtime right now. That just helps a lot to think of it that way, that, they're just on downtime. They're not out on a call, or, it's a call that, did they really need the ambulance there for something? No,
Probably not.
probably not. Yeah. Because, I know there's a lot of calls that, and the person just needs to see somebody. They just need to talk to somebody, and that's what it is. It's just, and that's one way they can get somebody there. Dial 911 and said, I'm having an emergency or whatever,
Yeah.
anxiety attack, panic attack, whatever they're having. It's just because they need somebody.
As Brian grew within the department, within the fire service, as he started getting more and more involved, going to get his certifications, was he volunteer the whole time he was up north and then came down to Texas? Or was he with a career department up north and then came down to Texas?
He was volunteer, and he was looking at a couple of different stations to get hired onto, but he never did
Mm-hmm.
because they decided that, for them, it was best to move away. And health-wise and everything, it's best to go south. So he did interview with other stations and stuff before finding one in Texas. So yeah, he did all volunteer up here, and then he moved down to Texas.
When he moved, how did that make you feel as a father that, okay, he's already in this fire service that I kind of worry about a little bit, but now he's in a career fire service where it's not he gets to pick and choose what calls he goes to anymore. Now it's he goes to work, but if something did happen, God forbid, now you're 15-hour drive away, and or a five.
Yeah, we can't get there fast enough. So at least over here, we were there within an hour and 15 minutes. And that's normal.
How did that make you feel as a father, knowing that your son was going to go to a completely different state, all the way south of the United States from where you guys are, doing this job? As a father, how did that make you feel? I'm sure there was a whole bunch of different emotions.
We were very proud of him and what he was going to go do. It was very difficult for them to pack the family up and move. Not only is him and his wife, but the grandkids. So that was hard, but we accepted it. We encouraged them as much as possible for what they were going to go do. And we felt that was the best thing for us, is to let them go explore, because we did the same thing. My wife and I did the same thing after we got married.
Mm-hmm.
We moved away from her folks, my folks, because her folks are in Wisconsin, my folks are in Nebraska. We moved hours away, 8 to 10 hours away. We never lived close until we moved back to Wisconsin. Then we were within 2 hours of her folks, but we were still 8 hours from mine. And we were fine with that, and they were, I guess, okay with it. They never really said that they didn't like it that we lived so far away, but, it is what it is. That was our choice not to live within 5 minutes of our folks. Hindsight, yeah, it's difficult
Mm-hmm.
not being around family because, here we are, we're the only ones up here. All of my family is back in Nebraska. Peg's got, her family is within 3 hours of us. So yeah, we can get there fairly fast, but it's still difficult when you get a phone call, about anybody. It'd be more difficult getting a phone call and being as far away as what we are, and knowing that we have to take 2 days to get there. One of us would probably fly while the other one drove, so that we're there faster. But still, it's scary. But yet, I encourage them to do what they want to do and live where they want to live. They don't have to live within an hour of mom and dad. My boss, he's told his kids they can't live outside of the county.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And his one boy lives in the next county over, but he sees him every day because he works with us.
Okay.
So it's a little different, And for me, and it's like, I want them to live and be happy where they want to be, not constricted to where they can't move. And we're happy with it. We try to talk to them as much as we can. And, there might be times when they were living up here, Brian would call and it's like, I just talked to you yesterday. I don't need to hear about the grocery store experience today. But when you get off late at night, you got to do something to be able to call somebody.
Right.
Or, whenever it is. So.
When he did move down here, I remember he got hired onto the department and Thanksgiving came around and it was going to be his first Thanksgiving away from his family.
Yep.
And I wasn't stationed at his station or he was stationed at mine. I was either working overtime or something. And what me and my wife do during Thanksgiving, we call it the Stragglers Thanksgiving. Basically, all the stragglers out there that don't have somewhere to go, that don't have family to see because they're either too far away, that don't want to go see certain family, all of them are friends. We call it the Stragglers Thanksgiving, and we invite everyone that doesn't have a place to go and or doesn't want to go to the place other people want them to go, or just hang out with friends that day. We invite them over for Thanksgiving. And I remember Brian saying that I think he had a cousin or his wife had a cousin down in this area. Yep. And I told him, well, you're more than welcome to come to the house. I know you guys don't have a lot of family down this way. You're new here to the Texas area. You're more than welcome to come. Completely open to you guys. And it would allow me to get to know him more on a personal level outside of work and everything.
Right.
He won't admit it, or he might, but I saw the look on his face when I invited him was just like, wow, I can't believe this guy's doing this. Because I invited the whole family, invited him, his wife, his kids, if they wanted, everybody. Of course, it was just him and his wife. He, I think, took that as, you're going to have to ask him to get exactly how he thought, but I think he took that as, okay, this is a brotherhood. I think that might have been not the first, but definitely in Texas, one of the first, like, hey, this department is going to be that brotherhood.
Yeah. Because, he thinks, from what I understand, he feels the department's more of a family. And that's the way he's looking at it because he doesn't have family down there. Mm-hmm. We've been family orientated their whole lives, so it was hard moving down there away from family and not being able to do holidays. FaceTiming like that is not doing holidays. It's just not the same thing.
Right.
And when, you offer to have them over to your house and treat them like family, that means a lot. And I know, it meant a lot to them to be able to go do that and to feel accepted into the family. because I know there's a lot of places where they don't accept each other as family, as brothers, as sisters, whatever. But you guys have, and not just one station and multiple stations. Everybody's got their ups and downs with different stations and stuff. Yeah. But I think he's in a station now that he really truly feels it is a brotherhood.
That's good that he's put that out to you, because if he didn't, I'd drag him on it. Has he shared a lot of the stories, not just callways? I'm not just talking about callways, but has he shared a lot of the stories between himself and the guys in the fire department with you? I'm not sure if my names come up or his lieutenant's names come up, or, when he has issues going on, if he talks to you about that kind of stuff that goes on within the fire department.
He does go off on tangents, but different things of what's happening. This happened at work with this one, and that happened with that one, and stuff. And I can always go back to this lieutenant or this guy at this station. We can talk about it. And I can figure out what we got to do and stuff like that. But yeah, he does, and I just try to listen to him and offer my opinion on the situation, and I'm only getting one side of the situation as to what happened and
I
what's
love the
going
fact
on.
that you said that. I love the fact that you said that, because that means that you are open to hearing both sides of the story.
Right.
And not a lot of people are like that, especially parents. Parents are very much so, my kid's always right, or my kid, it doesn't matter what your side of the story is. This is the way it
Yeah.
made my kid. But it sounds like, I love the fact that you said you're only getting one side of the story, so you're giving him advice based on that.
Right. And then some of it is just, hey, you need to go and just sit with the lieutenant and just let him know,
Mm-hmm.
or sit down with that person and say, hey, we have a conflict. What can we do to get past it? And then there's other times it's just like sweep it under the rug and go on. Don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal, but yet don't let it sit there and eat at you
Right.
and multiply, make a mountain out of a molehill. And there's times when, certain situations, yeah, you've got to go either directly to the person or you got to go follow the chain of command. And which that's the best way to do it. I mean, I had to do it when I worked retail. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I was in retail for 20,
A long
20 some years.
time.
Yeah, maybe a little longer, because I was in retail in 77. So, and we had to do the same thing. We had a conflict with an associate. We had to go up the chain of command. And you don't skip the chain of command, otherwise you get your ass beat.
Right.
So then that's why I tried to tell him, you need to follow the chain of command. If the two of you can't work it out, you need to get somebody else involved. I know he's done that.
Mm-hmm.
Tried to, step away from the situation, cool down, and then discuss it.
He's definitely done that. And he has used me a couple of times to be the mediator, and I've even offered to help to be that mediator too a lot of the time.
Yep.
He's he's definitely grown. I've seen him grown since I've worked with him. And this is something I can tell you that I've seen him grow as not just a firefighter and as a paramedic, but I've seen him grow as a human being these
Right.
past few years, being more open to the ideas, listening, being able to, I don't want to say confront, because confront sounds aggressive, but to confront a
Right.
situation that comes up head on. He wasn't like that when I first met him, but I've seen him grow into that.
Right.
And I think he uses your advice and the advice of others. He's very opening to listen, but he definitely talks about you a lot, that he does share a lot with you. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, because I wanted to get your side of that story.
Right.
How do you feel when he does share? And we'll go into the calls now, because I know there's some dark stuff that has been shared, not just with guys at the fire department, but calls that he may have been on, stresses he's shared with you. How does that make you feel as a father, not being able, one, to be right there to help out right away. What I've learned doing this is that communication within this life, within the fire life, it's an absolute must.
Yeah,
Is an absolute must if we don't want to lose our minds.
you have to be able to talk
Sound,
about it.
yeah, and it sounds like you're that person for him. So, first, thank you for being that person for him. Second, how do you take on that role of not just being the father, but also being just that person that he's confiding in and looking for that comfort in?
When he first started doing it, talking about some of the things that he's seeing, what he did on this job, what he did there, depending on the situation, I was proud of the way he was acting, that he was stepping up and knew exactly what he had to do, from somebody who never ever thought of being a fireman, but being able to think without thinking, just step in and know exactly what I got to do right now. Just a impulse. And for him to tell me different things that he's done and gotten, a pat on the back or whatever, or not, got his ass chewed out for doing something that he should have known what he was doing, and then I, give my opinion on, you should have. But I felt very proud of him at the time. And even still, I'm glad he's doing what he's doing, and I can't see him doing anything else anymore.
Do you find it hard sometimes to give that advice because
Yes.
you're not completely,
Because I can't be right there and be able to really communicate with him. It's hard to communicate over the phone anyhow. Because there's sometimes when, even as a man, you just still need a hug. And if you can get that from your dad or whatever, that's what you need. I know there's different times when, you just want to reach out and grab them, and say, hey, I understand what's going on. But I also understand that what you're doing, calling me and using me as a sounding board just to get it off the chest, that's fine. I'm happy to be the one that you can do and can confide in outside of the department. So it's really, to me, it's kind of an honor that he'll do that and be able to talk to me about different things, and how different situations and stuff, and laugh about some of them. And you can still hear it in your voice, when he's talking about it, he's reliving the whole situation. And yeah, you guys relive those situations more than once. And that's why there is, just like in the military, you relive the same situation, and it just gets at you. So you understand why the psychological factor comes in. Because the first time he told me he was taking a mental day, and this was early in his career, he said he had to take a mental day. I thought, what the hell are you taking a mental day for? Because this was early. I said, you work 24 hours and then you're off for 2 days. You're working how many days a month, versus what I work and stress over work every day. You don't. But so now, knowing this for years now, I understand why you guys need to take a mental day. I didn't understand it at first, but now I do. Hey, those mental days are good to, really get you guys where you can just relax and forget about everything and get your mind back in the right position where you can continue to do what you guys do. And I'll say, I'm proud of everybody that he worked with, because you guys are all there for each other, not just this one or that one. I didn't see that, when we were down there and visited the fire station, that you guys, it doesn't matter what it is, you guys are there for each other. So it makes me proud knowing that, and being able to know and get to know you guys, even if it's through just a conversation with Brian, seeing them, and I can visualize what they're doing and who they are now, versus, I might get the two guys' names mixed up and I'll have the wrong one and he'll correct me. No, it's this one. But A lot of you guys are young enough. There's a couple of them that are older than me or closer to my age that, yeah, I really wouldn't consider a son, more like a brother. But yeah, the rest of you guys, I would consider you guys more like kids. I would treat you the same way as I would mine. If you're doing something stupid, I'd come up back the backside of you, cuff you in the back of the head. Because I would do that to my boys.
And I can tell you right now, we we appreciate that, because when we have people like you who we can confide in and kind of understand what we've been going through, because you have Brian in the service, the fact that you look at us that way, it's very much appreciated. Have you found it difficult or easier as he's been going along in this career, or has it just always been the same when it comes to him confiding in you about the hard times, about the hard calls, because you can't really relate. You've never really seen the things we've seen,
No,
or involved, or had to do the things we've done. So I understand when I talk about it to somebody and they don't know what to say. I understand why they don't know what to say or why it's
right,
hard. Do they even really want to hear what I'm saying? Sometimes it's a little bit too much.
right.
Do you ever find yourself where it's a little bit too much, or you just at a loss for words?
No, early on, I guess it was more difficult
Mhm.
early in his career. I mean, yeah, realize he's only been down there. Has it been 5 years?
Yep, almost 5 years.
Almost five. Yeah, it'll be five in January. So yeah, it was more difficult initially to get a phone call from him and him to tell me how bad the accident was, how bad the fire was, whatever. So it's gotten easier over time. But then I look at some of the calls that he's went on that, to me, they were just blatantly stupid.
Hmm.
But I understand you guys have to answer all calls. You can't pick and choose what call you're going to take and what you can't. So I look at those and then I, kind of weigh the two. The fun ones, some of the funnier ones, stupid ones, whatever you want to call them, they kind of outweigh some of the darker ones. Yeah, I know there's been situations where, I mean, you guys' lives have been put into jeopardy more than once. And I understand. And I think there's times when he won't say that his life was in jeopardy
Hmm.
at that time, but you can kind of still hear it in his voice when he talks that, hey, this was not a good situation. And like I said, he won't tell mom a third of what he tells me, just because she would worry more and she would want him to get stopped. That's not what we want. We want him to be happy and doing what he's doing. He wasn't happy before being in retail and grocery and selling cell phones. It wasn't him. He's been the happiest since he's been down in Texas.
As a father to obviously multiple sons, do you find that Brian's line of work, or the life that he's in, is a little bit more challenging than the other, or that you can relate a little bit more to the others? I understand when I say challenging, I understand your youngest son has his challenges,
Right.
but you guys have powered through that. You guys have figured it out. You're still learning, and God bless you for it. But I'm speaking directly about lifestyle. Brian's lifestyle is that he's a firefighter.
Right.
He's in danger. He sees things that most of his family will never really understand.
Then they don't.
Then you have your eldest son, who's a car mechanic. There are some dangers in that,
Yeah.
but find it do you find it a little bit more difficult to relate to Brian than your other two?
Yeah. I do. I mean, because I don't fully understand everything that Brian does, and I never will because I don't deal with it on a daily basis. Do I understand cars? No. It's like I call him. call my oldest son, hey, what do I need to do here? And he'll just tell me, just YouTube it. It's a newer car, just YouTube it and he'll tell you exactly what you need to do. You don't have to bother me with it. But yeah, there's, completely opposite ends of the spectrum with the two boys. Aaron's home every day. He's got three boys. So yeah, he's got his hands full as teenagers. But there again, Brian's job is really more challenging physically and mentally, to where Aaron's is more confined. He knows, it's all going to be repetitive, to where Brian's, to a point it's not repetitive, because you never know what each individual call is going to be, because there's never two of them exactly alike. So there is a lot of different challenges. I guess I accept them for what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of understanding, Brian's is going to be more. With Aaron, I know he doesn't fully understand what Brian does or what Brian's seen, and he never will. Yeah, he has a friend that's his fireman, so, and I don't know if he's talked to him or not, about what he does, because he's a volunteer fireman here in town. And so, yeah, Aaron knows. Aaron gets, even as a mechanic in different areas, Aaron has seen pictures
Mm-hmm.
of accidents and different things from other law enforcement. And so he knows some of the stuff that you guys go through and has seen, and then there's other things that he never will. But it's challenging for me trying to separate the two. Yeah, it is hard. I make sure that, I understand what both of them go through.
And I want to make it known, because I'm a father as well, that we know how to separate the two when our kids have different challenges.
Right.
It's not that we care more about one's challenges than the other. It's not that at all. It just sometimes make it a little bit more difficult. One might need a little bit more attention than the other. And it's not showing favoritism or anything like that. It's just trying to understand, because there's two different stories here. There's two different situations. One's a little bit more easier to relate to than the other. I'm not trying to do favoritism or anything like that. It's just that's what it is.
Right. It is.
And I know I'm not going to say I know you're the exact same way, but it sounds like you're the same way. You're not showing favoritism to any one or the other.
No, you just got to treat them as individuals.
Right. And
go that way for men to understand what they do.
And just hearing your story earlier about your youngest son, you are a family you guys do not shy away from challenges. Doesn't sound like.
Nope.
And that's good for your kids to have, to see to growing up, seeing that struggle and seeing you persevere in that struggle. I guarantee you, as a son, if I saw that, would definitely shape me into a better man. I didn't have that growing up. My parents divorced at a young age, and my stepfather didn't come into the picture until I was about 10, 11 years old. My stepmother, I love her, she's close, but we haven't really had that real close relationship. I've seen my mother struggle with work growing up. She never gave up. My stepfather never gave up. My dad never gave up, but we never had that situation where the whole family was involved in some type of struggle and powered through it. We didn't have anything like what your family did. Do you think that his upbringing maybe helped him make that choice to go into firefighting? Because it sounds like the whole family had to help, especially with your younger son dealing with those challenges. It sounds like the whole family was willing to help with those challenges, to be a part of those challenges. Do you think that helped him make that decision, that helping in those situations and those challenges would be a little bit easier for him?
I think so, but there again, that he would have to answer that if it would help or not. But I
ask you because I want as a father, you notice your kids go through changes and how certain things
Right.
shape them. Like when they're playing baseball and they lose in a game, you watch their reaction. When they lose, do they take it extremely personally? Do they never want to play again? Or what do I got to do to make it better next time? How much
Right.
more do I have to practice? So you see that change, and then you help facilitate whatever it is, how they processed it. It sounds like you guys really helped your kids process helping other people in general, just
Right.
because of what you had to do as a family.
Yeah, I think so. We try to instill in them, hey, it's better to help
Mm-hmm.
others. We didn't have something, somebody needed something, we always tried to help. And I think that worked with both boys. Because my oldest, he'll help anybody. Um, and I think Brian grew into that when he started realizing that, hey, he loved being a fireman, an EMT, more than doing anything else. And so I think he grew into it more, being able to understand and help
Mm-hmm.
others as need versus somebody just needing help in retail stores. They don't need help. They can figure it out themselves where they are. But actually, when you're in a situation and you have to have that compassion for the person that's there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's grown into that. I think he always had compassion for other people. But being a fireman and EMT, I hear more of it coming out of him. And it doesn't matter the age. He's got that compassion for whoever. Unless it's somebody that's done wrong, he's not going to have compassion for somebody that physically is breaking the law. They don't deserve compassion, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You broke the law. You knew you broke the law. You're going to suffer the consequences. But somebody else that got injured, in a car accident, they need somebody there, and that's their lifeline, is that fireman, that EMT there. That's true compassion, when they can sit there and hold their hand and talk to them, try to take their mind off of what everybody else is doing to them, trying to get them out, what they have to do to them. And I think all you guys do that in different situations. You guys all have that compassion. And I think Brian learned it more, once he got started in fire, it started bringing it more out of him,
Mm-hmm.
passion for other people than what he used to have growing up.
If you can go back when Brian first started all this, knowing what you know now, what kind of advice would you give yourself as a father to maybe make it easier for you and or him or the family? What kind of advice would you give yourself?
Probably the biggest is, relax, don't worry, knowing that they'll be safe. They've got brothers and sisters around them that will help them in any situation. I guess, that would probably be the biggest takeaway. For me, being able to talk to him, with him, and knowing that, he's got people that are doing the same thing that can talk and understand it better than what him and I can, and what he can even attempt to make me understand what he's doing. But for me to tell myself years ago when he's got into it, yeah, I've gotten better. Relax more understanding of what he's going through. There were times when, I knew he was out on a call because, maybe we were talking or something or texting him. He goes, I got to go. And then, you realize he's going out on a call, but you don't know what kind of a call. So everything goes through your head as to what kind of a call is he on? What kind of situation is he getting into? And early on, that scared the hell out of me. But it doesn't as much now. I still worry, but gotten a whole lot better. And I guess that, if I could look back and tell myself now what I could look at, back then, it would be just relax, let them do what they need to do, talk to him later to try to understand and not worry about what they're doing. There's nothing you can physically do to change the situation. He's in a career that he loves, that he's putting his heart and soul into, like anybody else who's doing as an EMT fireman. You wouldn't be doing it if you didn't love it and, putting your heart and soul into everything there. Or anybody else, I guess, I would tell them the same thing. Just let them do their job. When you see them, when they walk through the door, give them a hug, whatever. Kids, it's one thing, when they're little, they're always excited when daddy comes home and mom comes home to see them because they haven't seen them for a while.
During this whole process with Brian becoming career firefighter and his volunteer days and everything else, how do you perceive the family took it? The brothers, the wife, the grandpa, the grandma, everybody. How do you perceive the family took it? And how did you try to explain to the rest of the family how it was?
Our family took it really well. I guess when he was a volunteer, it was a little different than because he was still doing something else. We never really expected him to go do it full time, make a career out of it. Then when he decided to move away and make it a career, I would say, the boys, they took it really well. The nephews were probably a little harder, but they were younger then. So, little kids are a little easier to get through stuff. The rest of the family, my folks, to be my stepdad, I guess I would say he was probably pretty well proud of Brian for doing what he was going to go do. I don't think he's ever really said it. Brian calls him every once in a while and harasses him. But as far as my mom was already gone, and Brian was getting the fireman. My dad, my stepmom, my dad was already gone. Brian really never had anything to do with my dad or my stepmom. It was always stepdad and my mom. And that's more so probably my doing with the boys growing up, because I never got along with my dad at all.
That happens. It's
so
it's not a true story. It happens. It happens with everybody.
So so really my stepdad was more my dad. He still is.
You would say the family in general was pretty much just proud
and very supportive. Even my wife's family, they were supportive of him, of doing what he was doing. I'm glad that he was going to go do something that would make a difference and to help him grow as a human being and as a father. But they've never said anything negative about it. Him being a fireman. I have a nephew that's a police officer, so I mean we're just as proud of him as anybody else. But it doesn't matter. I guess we're just all kind of proud of everybody, and really all the kids have done very well for themselves.
I want to get a little serious here, and I made sure that there was nothing Brian didn't want me to bring up. And he said,
Why?
he said everything goes. He said, I can't think of anything. I said, well, I'm going to have your dad on at 9 a.m. So you got until then to let me know. He never told me. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little serious, a little personal. Has he ever talked to you or come to you about a breakdown that he was having because of the job? About he was having a real hard time mentally or psychologically because of a call or because of the job and because of the stresses on top of home life stresses. Has he come to you and either just confided or looked for advice? And how did you handle that? How did that make you feel hearing that your son is hurting in this way? It's not physical, so it's not like, or financial. It's not like you can just send him money to help him out. but it was this mental thing that he shared with you that he's having this really hard time with. Has he ever shared anything like that with you? And if he has, how, as a father, did you approach that?
Well, I know there was some calls that really got to him, and he talked through them.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's, for me, I thought that's as far as it went. As far as him going to see a psychiatrist or the doctor and saying, hey, I need something for depression or something like that. No, I didn't know that until just recently, that he was going to the doctor, because there was calls that just mentally got to him.
Mm-hmm.
Then I understood after finding out that he's not telling me everything on the calls,
Mm-hmm.
or, not telling me about a lot of the calls that he goes on and what he sees. He'll give me a highlight here and there. Probably, and I'm feeling it's more of what he thinks, that he doesn't want to tell me everything.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't want to confide in me with everything, because he doesn't want me to worry about what he's going through. And understanding that it's more real, and finding that out
Mm-hmm.
makes it harder to see what he's going through, what any of you guys go through. It makes it more difficult for me to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But yet then again, I want to be there to help any way I can. Just takes a phone call for somebody to call me and say, hey, I just need to talk. And we talk, and you just ramble on about this or that or whatever. I would do it.
Do you think you're prepared to hear some of that stuff?
It would be difficult for me to hear some of the gory stuff, to be honest with you. But then again, I can forget it because I didn't have to live through it.
Right.
Unlike you guys still have to live through it. For whatever reason you guys have to. It has to be brought up more than once. And you guys just, you go to sleep and, especially after the call, that's all you see. And I'm understanding that more and more. So I'm glad that he does call me and tell me, but then again, I'm glad he doesn't tell me all the gory parts. And I think it's because he or anybody would be, afraid really to let parent or a spouse know exactly what they saw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can give you, highlights or whatever, but I'm not going to tell you all the details just because I don't want to relive it again. Already relived it how many times just since it happened. I don't want to go through it again. Then again, by talking it over, does it help with somebody other than a spouse? Parent, we can step back. We're not living it that day. We don't have to live with you going forward. You have to live with your spouse.
Right.
And would your spouse actually, if you told your spouse everything, all the gory details, she wants you to go back to work tomorrow, she wouldn't let you.
Right.
She would make you go find something else and put on a shirt and tie and go do something other than what you're doing. Because she can't handle seeing the gory or hearing about all the gory stuff that you guys see and all the situation you guys are put in. As far as life-threatening with you guys, they couldn't handle it. It's hard enough for me to handle knowing after the fact what could have happened as a parent. But as a spouse, I would tell you, you need to quit now. I couldn't handle hearing all about everything. And I know that's what you guys do. You guys don't tell everything.
Have you ever thought about telling Brian those words, that maybe he needs to think about doing something else because of how it was affecting him?
No.
No.
Because I knew he loved what he was doing and he had the compassion for what he was doing. I don't want to take that away from him, where he would be doing something other than and being miserable and hating what he was doing. And he would turn around and turn it back on me that you made me go do this. I'm miserable. I hate this. I don't want to go away and don't come back.
Right.
I know what he's doing, and I know he loves what he's doing, just like any of you guys do. You guys wouldn't be there if you didn't love what you were doing.
Sure as hell ain't for the money.
That's right. It ain't. Because what you guys see and what you guys go through, you guys aren't paid enough.
When he told you about the mental aspects and how it affected him psychologically, because I can tell you we all could see the same call. We can all be on that same call, and we all go back and we handle it differently. We all
Right.
handle it differently. It might hit one person way harder than it hits another person. There's some calls where we do see all that gory stuff, go back, wash our hands, and it's like, all right, let's go get something to eat. Like it's not even a thing. But when he tells you, hey, I'm getting help now for depression, for this mental illness that I didn't have before, but now I do because of the job. When he tells you this, how did that really, because for me as a father, if my child came and told me, hey, this, what I'm doing is literally changing my psychology, my brain.
Right.
It's causing me to have this illness, depression. But yet I don't want to stop doing it. It's weird. It's the only way I can explain it is like it's almost masochist a little bit, really. It's just like you like being, it's gonna hurt, it's gonna suck, but we still wouldn't give it up for the world.
Right.
Do you understand that on some level?
It's still hard knowing that, what it's done. But then again, I got to understand that part. But I also understand that's what he wants to do. And that's what he loves doing. So that outweighs what he's going through to
Mm-hmm.
me. And I can talk him through stuff probably a little better than what I could before after knowing that.
Mm-hmm.
So it does help.
Well, I can tell you that you are definitely somebody he confides in. He talks about you quite a bit about how he shares stuff with you and stuff like that, and how you're able to be that listening ear, because sometimes we do need somebody outside the job. We can talk about it with our brothers all day, brothers and
Right.
sisters in the department all day, but how they react to it is going to be different than somebody like my father who has seen me grown up, who understands how I've grown into this and how I think now. It would be different getting that advice than, say, from somebody that I have no idea how they grew up or what their background is, how they
Right.
became to have their morals and their personality and their outlook on life. So being able to confide into somebody like a father, a mother that understands the process it took for me to become the person I am now, being able to get feedback from them, I think helps a lot because they understand my process, my thought process, my mindset and how I got to there. So they
Right.
have, you as a father have a hell of a lot more information to go on when giving advice and when listening than, say, a psychologist or a friend. So we as firefighters really do need that. And you brought something up earlier about how sometimes we don't tell the whole story because we don't know how it's going to be taken by the
Right.
people we're telling it to. We don't want to burden them with what's burdening us.
Right.
However, I really think that, like you want them to burden you because you want to help them with that burden.
Right.
I want to say thank you for being that for him. I know I keep saying that, but seriously, I don't think that firefighters really thank the people that are in our brothers and sisters' life enough. We don't acknowledge them enough because without you being the father that he could confide in, his wife, his kids, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, the people that really support them, if it wasn't for you guys, he wouldn't be where he's at. He wouldn't be my brother and sister in the fire department. He might be something else.
Right.
Or something would happen and he would leave because he doesn't have that support. So I want to thank you as a brother firefighter to him for being that person to him, for being his father, for raising him the way you did. You did, from what I can consider, I think you did a pretty damn good job.
Thank you.
I continue to think you're doing a pretty damn good job from what he tells me and how he can confide in you and talk to you. So I just want to go ahead and just say that. Thank you. As this is not, you know, me saying it to kiss your ass or anything, but seriously, thank you for being his father and for supporting him because without that he wouldn't be what he is now. And if he wasn't what he is now, I would have never met him. He wouldn't have been in my life. He wouldn't be a brother. I consider him a brother. We go hunting a lot together and
Yep.
we've, we've been through calls together. We've seen some shit together. We've gone through in-house disputes together. I mean, he's almost as bad as a second wife. But I'll go ahead and start wrapping this up. We've been on for almost an hour and a half, but I want to ask you if you're in my shoes, and I ask everybody this question. If you're in my shoes and you're doing the podcast, right? You're the host, but you're interviewing yourself. What question would you have asked yourself that I didn't ask?
Probably, why did you let why did you let your son or daughter go into being a fireman, EMT, knowing the risks that they would be taking? Why would you let them put their lives in jeopardy on a daily basis?
And can you answer that question?
Not really. Why did I let him? Because I've always told my kids, you do what you want to do. I'm not going to hold you back. If that's what you want to do, I will fully support you. I may not like what you're doing, and I may not understand everything that you do, but I will support you. But do I like what he does? Yes, I do like what he does. Does it scare the hell out of me at times? Yeah. Just knowing that, and it's always after the fact that I know. And I think, my wife, she'd probably tell you different. That
Mm-hmm.
she probably would not want him to be a fireman, EMT, just because of the risk that he takes. But there again, he knew what he was getting into when he started. Volunteer at a smaller town. I mean, if you're lucky, you get 10 calls a year, not 30 calls a day, but, and it's completely different situations, from what he was doing up here to what he's doing down in Texas. It's opposite ends of the spectrum, really. What he was seeing up here to what he's seeing down there. Would I still be, will I do what to see what he's doing? Yeah. I can't see him really doing anything else. When somebody that's a fireman EMT finds that in themselves, they feel that compassion and that willingness to help others. Not that it's just a job.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, that's a true fireman EMT. when you've got that compassion, you've got your brothers around you, your sisters around you, doing the same thing, that see everything the same way you guys do. That's when you truly know you're doing what you were supposed to do.
Yeah,
And
that's
I,
a pretty damn good answer, sir.
and I, you know, I personally believe that, God's got a guiding hand on everybody. Doesn't matter if you're a man of faith or not. There's somebody else guiding you in your life, not just you, because you can't do it on your own. None of us can. We all fall.
We
You
all
know?
fall.
Yeah. So
I'm going to ask you just two more questions, and then we can finish this getting to know each other. This is us getting to know each other. I'm learning a lot about you.
yeah.
Do you have any questions for me? Do you want to know anything about me? Do you want to know something about Brian that I might know that you don't? Anything else? Remember, he said everything goes, so you can
I know
ask
he did.
what you want.
How long have you been a fireman?
I have been a fireman since 2008 is when I got my fire certification. However, I started as an EMT in 2006. Moved around after that, went to California, thought I was going to be a firefighter in California. Didn't work out, thank God.
Right.
And then I moved back to Texas where I pursued my fire career then. So I've been in the civil service field since 2006. So for 14 years, 14 years. I love the job. I truly believe this is what I was meant to do.
Right.
I cannot, like you saying, you can't see Brian doing anything else. I can tell you, I cannot see myself doing anything else that's not fire related, whether it be training, whether it be this podcast, anything like that. I cannot see myself being away from this life
Right.
because it's not just a job or a career. It is a lifestyle. It is a family. It's who I am. So that's where it's at. You got any other questions?
Have you guys ever thought, because you always hear about the guys who go out and do the forest fires. Have you ever wanted to go do that?
Actually, believe it or not, I am part of what we call a TIFMAS team. It's the forestry firefighters for Texas.
Okay.
We help other states. We have had firefighters go to California to help fight the fires in California.
Right.
So we do have a section within our department that allows us to go do that. I recently got my certification to go do that. When I first started, I always thought I was going to be what they call as smoke jumpers, the guys that
Right.
jump out of the helicopters and planes, parachute down, and then go fight fire. But that is that's a federal job. And I didn't pursue it early enough. I'm a little bit too old now. I can still do it. I just don't think that my body would allow me to do it for as long as if I would have done it at a younger age. But yeah, that is actually one of the things I wanted to do. I wanted to be part of that.
Right.
I actually want to get any and all training I can within the fire department. Firefighters aren't just firefighters. We don't just fight fire. We have a marine division where we do search and rescue and boat rescue, boat fires. We have a hazmat team where we don't just fight hazmat fires, but we actually mitigate hazmat spills
Right.
and save people that are in hazardous conditions other than fire. We have high angle rescue teams in our department. We have confined rescue teams. We have an urban search and rescue team. If God forbid there was an earthquake or a bomb that brought down a building and we needed to go search for survivors, we have teams that are certified and have the training to do that. We have heavy rescue teams where they specialize in the use of heavy rescue tools to cut people out of cars or to get into spaces where heavy tools are going to be needed.
Right.
So there's a bunch of little small sections of firefighting that I don't think a lot of people know firefighters are actually involved with.
Right. They don't.
It's funny because there's a running joke that firefighters aren't just firefighters. We're your plumbers, we're your electricians, we're your AC guys, we're your janitors at times, we're everything. We're everything. We're not just one thing. We don't just fight fire and we don't just help you when you have a medical issue. We do it all. And
Right. Yeah.
obviously we do it all. You got anything else? Anything you want to know about Brian? I'm interested if you have a question about Brian that you might want to know that he hasn't divulged, because I'm so willing to give you that answer.
Oh, just give it to me.
Well, I have to be specific. I don't want to share everything.
Come on.
We can do that when we're not recording. I'll tell you
Yeah.
some stories.
You can fill me in June, because we'll be back down in June.
You'll be back down in June?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely set something up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start shutting this down. I do have one more question for you.
Okay.
But before I ask, I want to say thank you for coming on. Thank you for agreeing to do this. When Brian told me that he had an idea of somebody and then he told me it was you, I was actually really excited because you are the first parent that I was able to talk to about having a child in the fire service and how it affected you personally as a father and as a parent. And so I really do appreciate you sharing your story and your viewpoints and how, I mean, your family's background, everything. I really do appreciate you sharing
Well,
that.
I thank you for asking me and wanting me to do it for you. I
Oh,
appreciate it. It was on.
my last question to you is, what do you think it is that makes us fire? And when I say us fire, I mean all of us, you included, your family, Brian, his family, me. What do you think it is that makes all of us that are involved in this life, whether you're directly in it or you're a parent, what do you think it is that makes us fire?
Your compassion for others, your drivenness to do the job day in, day out, willingness to basically live with somebody who is not physically related to you, because you are spending a lot of time, with somebody that, you have no idea who they are until they walk through that door. And then all of a sudden they're there and you've got to live with them. You got to deal with their mannerisms and quirks and everything else. But the biggest thing I think is the compassion for wanting to help others. I think to me, that's the biggest thing that we could do, is have compassion for others. Because we're not seeing a whole lot around the country, but within the fire departments and the EMTs and, even some of the police stations, there's that compassion. They wouldn't be doing it if they didn't love doing what they were doing. And I fully support you guys. And if there's anything I could ever do, that would help, I would be there. Ryan knows I would be there, in a heartbeat if he needed something.
And we really greatly appreciate that. Well, Mr. Smith, thank you very much for coming on to the podcast. Thank you for sharing your story again. I really do, really do appreciate it. And again, thank you very much for just being his father, for showing him the support that you do, for
Thank you.
being able to talk.
You're welcome.
Because even you just talking to me helps me as well. And thank you for allowing us to confide in you. We need, the more people we have, the better.
Right.
And I think it gets lost on us that we have more support from our brothers and sisters, family and friends that we don't take advantage of.
Yeah.
And I think that this helps us realize that we can and that it's okay.
Right. It is okay.
Awesome. Well,
Right.
Mr. Smith,
Appreciate it.
thank you for coming on, Mr. Smith. I appreciate it. What makes us fire family? Thank you, Mr. Smith. You guys be safe out there. Have
You
fun.
too.
Peace. All right, everyone. That was Mr. Smith. I want to thank him again for coming on to the show. Thank you guys for dealing with the audio. We did have some connection issues, but you stuck through. You heard them out. What Makes Us Fire Family, you guys are amazing. Please remember to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at What Makes Us Fire. Also on TikTok. And if you need to, you can always email me at whatmakesusfire@yahoo.com for any questions, comments, concerns, anything I might help you with. Y'all have been amazing. You guys have been helping me grow. Please continue to listen. Please continue to share. Get out there, have fun, stay safe. Peace.